St. Paul, Minnesota's rent control program will have a devastating effect on landlords, but the Minnesota State Senate is trying to nullify it. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over, once again, the rent control program up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, I keep bringing this up because it was kind of an unexpected thing, in my opinion, to see a Midwest city suddenly pass rent control. Now, that's something that I've only seen on the coast, on the East Coast or the West Coast. In California and New York are known to be very, very anti-landlord, and, they have rent control policies in both places. So when I saw this happen in Minnesota, which is only a few hour drive from where I live in Omaha, Nebraska, it's kind of scary, honestly. It just kind of told me that, hey, this stuff, these far left-leaning progressive policies are spreading, and eventually they could end up right here where I invest, where I live, and I don't want to see that. Okay, especially one as strict and awful as this one they imposed up in St. Paul. So if you haven't heard, okay, the rent control policy in St. Paul would limit rent increases to 3% per year, right? And it doesn't exempt new construction. It doesn't exempt small properties or small landlords. So even the single family house and the landlord who owns one single family rental would be stuck under this rent control policy. So even the developer who just built a brand new $100 million mega apartment complex would be stuck under this rent control policy. So what effect do you think it had? Immediately, 80% of all new development in the city they just canceled it. They canceled it immediately because they said, hey, the developers won't be able to make any money on their projects. Okay, that's awful. That is absolutely awful. Now, they're saying, oh, well, they'll be able to make money, but hey, they didn't actually go and talk to the developers and, figure out, hey, why are you canceling these projects? No, instead they were talking to activists, they were talking to advocates who think they know better, and they don't. They don't understand the economics, they don't understand what the lenders are saying, they don't understand anything about running a business, and they have hopes and dreams that don't make any sense, and they live in some kind of, dream world where, hey, these policies won't have any effect on development, and they were just wrong. So the mayor of St. Paul even went out there and, was trying to make adjustments to the program and, wasn't able to do it. So now the new rent control policy takes effect on May 1st. Okay, so if you're watching this video after that date, hey, St. Paul, Minnesota now is under rent control. It's bad news. It's bad news overall. So yeah, the article I'm going over today, it's talking more about this and, talking about how the Minnesota State Senate is trying to pass a bill that would basically make it illegal for any city to pass a rent control policy. I'm all in favor of it. I'm all in favor of that. If the state has to step in and curb the ridiculous far left-leaning progressives from doing stuff that is not beneficial for the state, not beneficial for the city, and will actually hurt not only the landlords but the tenants as well, I'm all for it, okay? Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you think that this bill has any chance of passing up in Minnesota? Do you think that this thing that would basically stop the rent control policy in St. Paul could actually get through and pass? I don't, okay? I don't think there's a chance in heck that this will pass. Yes, the Republicans, I believe, control the Senate up in Minnesota, but I believe the House is controlled by the Democrats. And I know that the governor up there is a Democrat, right? And I don't think that this has a chance of passing. Yeah, they put out a good effort and, they tried, but this isn't the solution to the problem. But it is saying that, hey, there is opposition out there. So knowing that there is this sort of opposition, that's a good thing. But, for the landlords who are operating within St. Paul, a lot of the small landlords in particular, I say sell. I say get out of there. Get the heck out of there. And go somewhere where you're treated right, okay, where you still have your property rights, where you can still raise your rents. And that might just be in a suburb 1 minute outside of the city. But the city itself isn't worth investing in my opinion. So this article is coming from twincities.com, and it says, Minnesota Senate votes to curb rent control while House votes for rental assistance. Tough talks ahead. Let's see what it says. Minnesota Senate Republicans want to nullify the rent control caps that St. Paul voters approved last fall and prevent other cities from enacting similar limits. House Democrats would restrict landlords' right to evict renters. Those DFLers also favor spending $382 million of the state's $9.3 billion budget surplus to ensure that thousands more Minnesotans have affordable places to call home. GOP senators approved spending a relatively modest $50 million primarily to promote home ownership. So when they say DFLers, I'm assuming they mean Democrats. I don't know why they call them DFLers, but maybe somebody in Minnesota could help me out with that. But anyway, it says that they are also, House Democrats want to restrict landlords' rights to evict tenants. So, of course, they're coming out with more eviction protection policies, right? Maybe Minnesota isn't the best place to invest at all if you're a landlord, but goodness, there's so many new rules and new regulations trying to prevent landlords from being able to evict. Well, why does all this have to come out, right after we suffered so much during the whole pandemic and all the eviction moratorium nonsense? Now they want to impose eviction moratoriums that are permanent. I mean, come on. What do they think, that we're just like made of money? I mean, why would anyone want to be a landlord in a place where you can't evict anybody, and not only that, but you can't raise the rents to cover your own costs and expenses? I mean, come on, what are they thinking? I mean, you would think that there would be some sort of business knowledge or knowledge of how businesses operate somewhere within some of these politicians, but there never is. It just surprises me that these politicians, without ever seeing, anyone's finances or accounting or statements or anything, just declare that, hey, landlords are greedy and they don't need the money because they're making plenty of profits. You haven't seen my profit and loss statement. You haven't seen anything. Okay? No, you're just guessing. You're guessing that my rents are making me some huge profit. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. In a lot of cases, the profit you think I'm making isn't nearly as big as what you would suppose, okay? And that's because you have a misunderstanding of how a business operates and how finances work. And that's the problem when they elect these politicians into office who have no clue, who've never owned a business, who have no clue how businesses operate, but they are the ones dictating the laws that businesses have to comply by. Oh man, it's frustrating. But anyway, let me continue. The two sides appear headed to the House Senate Conference Committee, where they will attempt to resolve the vastly different versions of housing bills approved by the two chambers this week. Senate Republicans nix rent control. The Republican-controlled Senate on Wednesday voted 41-26 for its housing bill that offers little to assist tenants who are struggling to pay rent, but helps families purchase single-family homes. The bill's sponsor, Senate Housing Committee Chair Rich Draheim, Republican from Madison Lake, said Minnesota needs 50,000 more housing units, and his legislation would spur housing construction and enable more families to buy homes and start building wealth. Yeah, one thing I've noticed is that when it comes to the two different sides, right, the more progressive left-leaning side and the more conservative right-leaning side, right, the left-leaning progressive side seems to believe that in order to fix housing costs, we need more government regulations. We need, the government to step in here and do, build housing and force, all these rules and regulations over private business, right? Whereas on the right, they believe that private business needs to be left alone. They need less government regulations, and they want the private businesses to go out there, build new housing, and the new housing will help lower the housing costs, right? And this is consistent all throughout the country, because on the left, it seems like they believe that the solution to everything is more government. They think the government is the solution to everything. And on the right, they tend to believe that individuals and companies and businesses they have a responsibility and they can solve a lot of their own issues. So yeah, I'm about personal responsibility. I'm about, hey, if you can't afford the rent in this house, you need to go find somewhere you can afford, right? Whereas, the politicians on the left seem to believe, hey, if you can't afford this house, well, I'm going to force that landlord to lower his rent so that you can afford it. That doesn't make any sense, okay? Not to me, not to anyone else. And they only seem to be doing this when it comes to rental properties and being a landlord, okay? They don't do this in other types of business. They don't go down to the car dealership and be like, hey, those people, they need a car so that they can get to work. So you have to lower your car prices to the rate that they can afford. No, they don't do that. They don't do that with food, like go to the grocery stores. You have to lower your food costs because these people are hungry and they want to eat. So you have to lower your food costs so that they can afford. No, they don't do that. But when it comes to rental houses, all of a sudden they're like, you have to keep these prices low because these people, they want to live here. They have to live here in this place. They can't live anywhere else. The logic that they use when they pass these laws, it's illogical, okay? It's illogical to anyone with common sense. And then you realize, hey, they just don't have any common sense, okay? They're living in an ideological world. And in this world, with their ideology, they can't understand the way that finances and business works. So, yeah, I hope that, this bill from the Senate Republicans in Minnesota, I hope it goes further, but I really just don't think it will. And that's unfortunate. But I'm also interested in this bill from the Democrats in Minnesota that would impose some kind of eviction protections. Let me see what it says here. Okay, it says... It looks like they're trying to give housing assistance, but I don't see anything about the eviction protections. Okay. House Democrats assist renters. The DFL-run House voted 70 to 62 Tuesday night for a wide range of housing programs that would protect renters from evictions, prevent homelessness, reduce costs for some homeowners, provide some rental assistance payments, and, like the Senate, offer down payment aid to people trying to buy their first homes. And I'm not opposed to a lot of that stuff, right? I'm not opposed to trying to prevent homelessness. I'm not opposed to trying to reduce costs for homeowners. I'm not opposed to providing some down payment assistance, right? But I am opposed to them trying to prevent evictions. I'm opposed to that. In my opinion, one of the things that would make housing more affordable, especially for minorities and other ethnic groups who historically have had low rates of home ownership, would be to increase that rate of home ownership, make it easier for them, to get into housing, teach them the financial education they need in order to buy their first homes. And government isn't always a solution. A lot of this stuff is financial education, saving up that down payment amount, learning to pay your bills on time, learning how to repair your credit. Those are the things that are truly necessary in order to buy a house, not necessarily a government down payment assistance. That won't help in all situations, okay? So yeah, interesting stuff. Let's see what happens up there in Minnesota.